Why do people stagnate in soundspace? The short answer is that most people don't. But the long answer is a bit more complicated than that, and it lies not only in stagnation itself, but also in perception, expectation, and comparison. Improvement doesn't feel dramatic, it is a slow and methodical process. So slow, in fact, that a lot of people don't even realize it's happening. Apart from being slow, it's also volatile. You don't just get better and better, it is a non linear process where some days you're better than others. When you pop off one day and then the next day you weren't playing as well, it feels like you're worse when it's actually quite the opposite. You did get better, just for a small period of time. The people who complain about stagnation are usually the ones who want to improve in the game. Improving in the game is different from wanting to pass hard maps. All of us want to pass maps with higher accuracy or super fast maps, and that's normal. But when you want to grow in the game as a whole, that's when you start noticing that the game is actually slower than you thought it was. And that's when you feel the stagnation. The truth is, what actually improves your performance isn't tryharding or trying to find a good map to train this or train that. What makes you better is when you play consistently random maps a bunch of times, or in other words, just having fun. In psychology, there's a theory called the hedonic adaptation. That theory states that when you achieve something, you get a great sense of accomplishment, but that is simply temporary. As time goes on, you grow used to the level of accomplishment and you want more and harder achievements. Do you remember the first time you passed a logic map? Because I kinda do. It was some random map I played at speed minus minus, and yet I was so happy. I was so happy that I managed to pass a logic map. All I had done before that was playing Knight 2 no mod, so doing a logic map felt like such a big accomplishment. But as the time went on and I did it again and again, it no longer felt special. Nowadays, passing a logic is just an afterthought. Now I need the accuracy, I need the leaderboard, I need the top one, and even when I do get the top one, it's simply another one. Not my peak, not my top performance, just one more. The point is, you grow used to accomplishment, and improvement becomes invisible once it becomes normal. You might not feel like this makes any sense to you, because when you look at your past score, you were way better than what you nowadays are. It is not like you're setting a standard that is out of reach. You were there before, right? But being there before doesn't tell you the whole story. It is easy to forget the amount of time and effort you put into the game then. How many hours did you put in a day? How many times have you failed? How many different settings have you been through? You probably aren't able to answer most of these questions, and this is because this is the part of the gameplay that you forget. You don't really remember the amount of times you fail, you remember the amount of times you succeed. Your top performance, your top player, your top self, not your actual self. Maybe you once were something that you nowadays aren't. Maybe that's because you put in more hours then than now, and that's fine. Maybe you won't reach the person you once were, and that is again totally okay. But setting expectations based on a self that you no longer are is simply not sustainable. I mentioned before that you may feel like you're playing bad because you had a good day yesterday and now you're just back to normal. And this ties really well with the theme of inconsistency. There are a lot of players that are super inconsistent, especially beginners. Some days they're popping off and passing all hard maps they come across, and the other day they are set back by around 2 speeds. Inconsistency usually comes from familiarity. The more you play, the more familiar you become with the maps, patterns, settings, and the environments as a whole. The thing is that when you stop playing, this causes you to become less familiar with the game. This is usually more apparent with newer players who go to sleep and then the next day are playing terribly again. But this can happen with more experienced players too. Of course, you already know that if you stop playing for 3 months, you can't expect to be as good as you once were. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about 8 hours of sleep that weren't spent playing. Something small that makes you bad in ways you can't describe but you can feel. And then, all of a sudden, you feel like you're playing poorly when it's actually something you can't quite control. The thing with familiarity is that it's inconsistent. Some people don't even feel it, others are destroyed by it. And that may be where your sense of stagnation comes from. More and more you check your performance, more and more you compare yourself, more and more you feel stuck. And that's why you're here. And now, at basically the end of this video, you have no conclusions other than play more. I wrote this video already expecting this response, but there are a lot of players that need to hear that. The more you monitor yourself, the more you judge yourself, the less you enjoy it, and the more improvement feels slow. But when you actually play the game for the game, improvement happens just as slow, but now, instead of asking yourself why, you're just feeling the game. People don't stagnate as often as they think. You don't stagnate because you're incapable, you stagnate because you're measuring wrong. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the video. Thank you for watching, and if you liked, please consider liking and subscribing as I will try to post a video a week from now on. Hope you have a great day, and I see you next time.